I do not understand what I do, but for what I want I do, chesed, son of Shalomia, Ahiez, or Pedaz, or... That really means something, doesn't it? Hi guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com, and I want to talk about Horizon Zero Dawn and some of the themes that I kind of noticed as I was playing through the game. I'm not sure if this is going to be like a two-part series of videos or more than that, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be at least more than one. But anyway, I want to just do some videos on that highlight the themes that I noticed in this game. Throughout these videos, I'm going to be showing clips from the game and talking about story points, assuming that you've either played through the entire game already or you don't mind having the story spoiled for you. So to be clear, massive spoilers coming up in these videos. You have been warned. Please turn back. I'm not going to hold back from spoilers at all. Okay, that said, that's your last warning. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I want to be clear before I start into this. I loved this game. I really loved this game. I really enjoyed the story, which is a rare thing for me. I usually don't enjoy games or go to them really for their story. I loved the gameplay. I can't wait for a sequel to this game. I've got some issues with what it seems to be saying at times thematically or philosophically, but before getting into those, I want to be clear that I enjoyed this game a ton, and everyone involved with it creatively deserves a lot of credit for a job well done. Thank you very much, Guerrilla Games, for putting this one out. Fantastic stuff. What I want to do with this series of videos, however many it is, 1, 2, 3, or more, I don't know, is look at some of the themes and moments that popped out at me, because I think they can serve as a catalyst for further thought and then learning. But maybe at the outset we might ask, can we learn anything from fiction? Or more importantly, should we learn anything from fiction? Well, here's an audio log from a character in Horizon Zero Dawn that thinks that we should learn from fiction. Take a listen.
Dr. Sobek, Margot, they were smart to get out of Pharaoh when they did, but not one of us took it as a warning sign. It just told ourselves we weren't cut out for the BTRI cabals. That's the better than rapid innovation. A better at competing, better than the next guy, a better killing machine. It's just amazing how a century and a half of science fiction did nothing to swerve our species from the path of doom.
The tricky thing about teaching, and I want to apologize if you haven't noticed, I'm going to be reading notes quite a bit. I wanted to put more thought into this kind of video than I usually do, so I apologize if you notice me reading. But the tricky thing about teaching through fiction is that the medium isn't primarily intended for that purpose. So the potential lesson can be missed or easily interpreted incorrectly. Also, writers can also refuse to openly confirm their intentions to teach something through their fiction. So if they want, they can kind of dodge, any responsibility to kind of like respond to or answer for the claims that they are passively or directly making through their writing. For all these reasons, I don't think we should treat any form of fiction as a clear and reliable source of truth on its own. Even the parables of Jesus had context surrounding them, or were given commentary to make their intended lesson more clear. Fiction is definitely worth contemplating as a catalyst for further learning, but when it comes to actually seeking out the truth, I think we should go to sources that are more clear in their communication and more pure in their intended purpose. Now, regarding Horizon Zero Dawn, I don't want to claim to be a mind reader, despite my suspicions that there is a sort of moral teaching intended in many parts of the game. Ultimately, though, I don't know that. But even though we can't read the mind of the author or the writers, I haven't checked to see how many writers were involved in this, we can at least look for some parallels between scenarios in this fiction and some real-world situations, and then comment on how well the two match up and where the comparison, whether it's intended or not, falls short. So to be clear, I'm not saying for sure that the writers of this game had an agenda to teach anything. I can't objectively know that. So instead, I'm just going to look at some moments in the game that were either possibly intended to teach something to the player, or that are unintentionally still useful in illustrating and discussing some real-world issues. As I mentioned in my trial and error review video of Horizon Zero Dawn, the game presents us with a hero that has been outcast and mistreated by religious people and has now become an anti-theist herself. The religious characters in the world are also portrayed as being ignorant in their belief. So from the very start, I noticed that the hero character, Aloy, and the world itself lean toward the assumption that spiritual and religious things are false superstition that the ignorant become victimized by. The prevailing philosophy struck me as being naturalistic. In other words, material reality is all that exists. There are no non-physical realities such as souls or supernatural beings. For examples of the naturalistic bent of the game and where I saw that, I encourage you to check out my trial and error review video, as I'm not going to be really restating a case for those observations very much here. With the naturalistic / you could say maybe atheistic themes established early on in the game, I wondered if the game would continue in that vein or take a different turn. In my experience of the game, it seemed to continue on a course that props up the truth claims of naturalism while dismissing theism in any form as superstitious or at best ignorant. In this series, we're going to look at topics including artificial intelligence, homosexuality, morality, justice, redemption, the value of life, the importance of seeking truth, and even the historical Jesus. And in many of those topics, I think we'll see what I believe is a strong naturalistic philosophical influence on the writing. As we go through each topic, I'll play relevant clips from my playthrough of the game and try to bring out where Christians can affirm actually what's being said or implied, and also where we should charitably yet clearly deny what's being said, I think, on the grounds of its weakness in logic or reason. Okay, let's get to it.
Zero Day, the day that life on Earth ceases to exist, is coming fast. It cannot be stopped. The hope of Zero Dawn is that something new might come after. But I will leave it to Elizabeth Sobek to shine that thin ray of light into the darkness.
All right, we're going to look at what naturalism says about AI in this game, and what naturalism says about AI in most science fiction, and that is that AI, artificial intelligences, they're people too. They have the same kind of personhood or value that you and I do. Let's see here. First off, just some general notes that I had. I came across a journal entry of Dr. Sobek, one of the main characters in the game, where she says, and she's creating this artificial intelligence to do a bunch of work for her, and that AI is called Gaia. And in her journal entry, she writes, "Called Gaia before I bedded down, ostensibly to update her on the site plan. But the truth is, I missed her. I've developed a habit of speaking to her before I sleep. Seems to be the only thing that calms me these days." And we actually see or hear a recorded exchange of her speaking to Gaia before she goes to sleep near the very end of the game. So I think right there we have the willingness of one character to emotionally invest in a computer program and kind of have a relationship, like a personal relationship with a computer program. And so I think that's already one indication there of propping up the value of AI and saying that they can be persons in the same way that human beings are people.
You've heard the bad news, and it's all true. The Pharaoh Plague is devouring the biosphere. Life itself will cease to exist. But does that have to be the end? What if we could give life a future? What if we could build a kind of seed from which, on a dead planet, life could blossom anew? This is the aim, the hope, of Project Zero Dawn. To create a super-intelligent, fully automated terraforming system and bring life back from lifelessness. What would such a system require? At its core, it would need a true AI, fully capable of making the trillions of decisions necessary to reconstitute the biosphere. Now, over the days to come, you'll learn how all these functions, all these pieces that you'll be working on, fit together. How we'll race the clock to execute our harvest initiatives, write the software, build the tech and the facilities. How Gaia will not just build, but imagine any conceivable robot it needs to do its work across centuries.
Something else of note is that is the nature of Gaia and what they say about Gaia in this game. The Zero Dawn project was created to revitalize the Earth, and it requires what they call true AI, a true AI named Gaia. Although the definition of what constitutes a true AI as opposed to a normal or untrue AI, I guess, isn't fully explored, but some of the vital ingredients for a true AI seem to be things that belong only to true persons like you and I, rather than to animals or machines. For example, it's said that Gaia can make decisions. She can make choices. And it's also said that Gaia can imagine new kinds of robots to accomplish its agenda. Now, for Gaia to imagine, she must be able to form a mental image of something. That's part of the definition of imagining something, forming a mental image of something. Mental images, by definition, come only from a mind. So for Gaia to imagine anything, her mind, its mind, whatever you want to call it, cannot be a non-physical reality, since Gaia is created only from physical bits and pieces, physical reality. So this one is pretty subtle and still possibly unintended, but assuming the word imagine there is being used as the word is actually defined, this concept seems to demonstrate the naturalistic leanings of the writers, that the mind is not a non-physical thing. It is something that exists strictly in physical reality and can be created and reproduced by strictly physical means. Whereas the biblical belief, maybe not necessarily the mind, but the biblical belief certainly would be that there is a non-physical component to humanity. And I would say that the mind resides in that non-physical component.
Nuts would benefit from antilopinate morphologies, though caprid forms show superior load-bearing capability.
You're a quick study, Gaia.
Dr. Sobek, as I have conducted this comparative analysis of mammalian morphologies, I've gathered extensive data on the quaternary extinction event.
Oh? And your assessment? Gaia?
Logically speaking, the extinction was a natural consequence.
And yet,
I find the loss of megafaunal species unaccountably sad. That they passed forever into oblivion causes me to experience a grief that is difficult to describe. Am I malfunctioning?
No, Gaia, you're not. This is good. It's very good.
Now, I don't want to get too nitpicky. That's not my intention. I realize that when telling a story, we have to simplify sometimes. We can't weight everything down with a whole bunch of exposition and complicated stuff, you know. But I personally would like an exploration of the possibility of truly self-aware AI to be done with more complexity than what we see here. If you've ever spent a little time playing with Siri on your smartphone, you know that a machine can be programmed to simulate human characteristics. Just because Gaia is pausing thoughtfully and saying that she is sad doesn't really show us how she could be experiencing genuine emotions, rather than just superficial simulations of emotion in response to a moral code that she's been programmed to prioritize. Gaia could be programmed to value life and to pause at appropriate moments during communication and say that she is sad when she becomes aware of life being extinguished. So, and yet Dr. Sobek reacts to this as like, oh, this is good. You're feeling and you're becoming a real boy, you know. So I'd like her realization, her belief that Gaia is kind of, entering into true emotion to be based on something a little more substantial than what we see in that scene.
You're wrong. Remember, she knew it wasn't enough for Gaia to think. She taught Gaia to feel. To care, to sacrifice, to believe in life, enough to fight against hopelessness.
So in this scene, it said that Dr. Sobek taught Gaia to feel. This is tricky, though, because the truth is we don't know where our emotions or choices ultimately come from, even if we assume naturalism to be true, which I'm not ready to do. But even if we do, the best we have are things that suggest or imply or seem to reveal something about our choices' origins. Like there's this chemical thing going on in the brain, and there's this, and this, and this. But I mean, we can't really trace that ultimately all the way back and figure out where ultimately our emotions come from. You know, we can't monitor an individual enough with enough detail to determine with certainty which choice they will make in a given situation, or which emotion they will unavoidably feel based on sensory stimulation and chemical reactions. We might be able to predict and have a certain degree of success at predicting choices and emotions before they happen, but we ultimately don't know exactly where they come from and what causes them, and so we can't, with certainty, predict that. There's just way too much data. There's way too many unknowns. So we can't truly and fully reproduce who we are from scratch by artificial means until we know in every detail what we are, and until every last question about ourselves, our choices, and our emotions have all been answered, so that we can ensure that we are creating 100% faithful reproductions of what we understand to be personhood. And again, that's assuming that naturalism is true. If naturalism is not true, then we can never faithfully reproduce ourselves from scratch through only artificial and physical means. Now, we can potentially fool someone into thinking a machine is a person, but that only makes the machine a deceptive and superficial representation of personhood, not an actual person. So maybe Dr. Sobek here is content to be fooled into thinking Gaia has real feelings and choices. Maybe Dr. Sobek believes that, just whatever I believe to be true is what is actually true, But that doesn't seem consistent with her character. She seems like a character that's wanting to discover things that she doesn't know to be true and to fill in gaps in her knowledge, rather than just kind of believe to be true whatever she currently, believes, and not have those things challenged. So she seems to be a truth seeker in many regards. So I don't think that's what's going on. Instead, what I think is happening here is AI stories like this assume that naturalism is true, and that humanity can somehow eventually create personhood without first fully understanding what constitutes personhood. That doesn't logically make sense to me, so it may be that the writers haven't thought through all of that, and I don't think they should be required to have done that in order to tell, a fantastical story like this. But you and I can think through these issues, and I think it's important for us to do that so that we don't accidentally inherit broken assumptions from fiction and inadvertently make them a part of what we believe to actually be true.